For a long time, Israel has used sex to sell Zionism, to convince people that Israel is a hot fantasy being realized by hot people, not a racist settler colony built on the killing, displacement, and erasure of the indigenous Palestinians. This is intentional, and there are 3 reasons why. They involve Israel's invention in the past, cover-up in the present, and survival for the future. And this all started when Zionists first started plotting for the creation of a Jewish homeland in the late 1800s. For centuries in Europe, stereotypes of Jews were that they were weak, pale, and frail. And the Zionist movement came to see it this way too, widely criticizing the weak, old Jew. In 1898, at the Second Zionist Congress in Switzerland, the co-founder of the Congress, Max Nordau, called for a new Judaism, a muscular Judaism, and invented the idea of the new Jew. This Jew would be rugged, muscular, strong, and tanned, and would have the mental and physical strength to realize the goals of Zionism and colonize Palestine. They called themselves Sabra, the prickly pear fruit in Hebrew, to represent what they saw this new Jew to be, hard and prickly on the outside, but tender-hearted and sensitive on the inside. And, of course, native to the land. Of course, the sabr, as it's called in Arabic, is a fruit indigenous to Palestine, appropriated for the Zionist fantasy of indigeneity. But anyway.
The men who came out to found this colony had never handled a plow, but they were possessed by 3 ideals: land, liberty, and labor.
It is these new Jews that created the Zionist militias that planned and orchestrated the Nakba, the mass-scale killing and displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, ending with the creation of Israel. And those same militias would become the Israeli army, the violent occupying force overseeing the colonization of Palestine today. And it's through this army that the visual of the new Jew lives on. But then with time, this visual became the only visual of Israel. This was a problem. In the early 2000s, surveys in the US were showing that Israel had a big PR problem with men aged 18 to 35 who just saw Israel as a conflict zone and weren't interested. So another rebrand was due, and the solution this time was bikinis. In 2007, the Foreign Ministry and the Ministry of Tourism arranged for a photo spread in Maxim magazine, one of the most popular men's lifestyle magazines at the time. The brains behind this initiative at the Israeli consulate in New York said the models were, quote, a Trojan horse to present Israel as a modern country with nice beaches and pretty women. This video is from the official Israel in New York YouTube channel.
So you should come to Israel. We have a beautiful country, great food, great culture. Come to Israel. Beautiful girls as well. See you at the party.
This strategy, also called bikini diplomacy, has been seen all over since, with Israel constantly selling the image of a liberal, free country where it's always summer, where the days are full of beaches, bikinis, and chiseled bodies, and the nights are spent in an incredible nightlife scene open to anyone and everyone. In the face of this fantasy, Palestinians come off like a backwards, pesky nuisance trying to disrupt this liberal orgy utopia, not like colonized people looking for freedom and dignity. But that was in a time before social media, where only the powerful had access to a platform. Times have changed, and so the sexy offensive has had to adapt. All over TikTok and Instagram, you can find videos of Israeli soldiers posting thirst traps or dancing videos. Some of them act independently, while others are part of a concerted effort putting attractive women in the occupation forces in the public eye. Like the women at Alpha Gun Angels, a gun modeling and social media marketing agency who sell being a colonial foot soldier as a sexy lifestyle.
But listen, I've been in the army, I'm Israeli, I'm tough.
Thirst traps aren't only reserved for women, but for weapons as well. And beyond selling sex, they're selling colonial occupation as fun, relatable, and empowering. They love gay pride content, girl boss content, and jumping on TikTok trends. Of course, the great irony is that none of these liberal values are extended to Palestinians. They live under occupation, regardless of what they identify as. In that, colonialism does not discriminate. When the Palestinian reality started reaching people around the world, the strategy had to change. Whereas the goal before might have been to rebrand and repackage Israel, the goal now is to distract and whitewash. So bikinis were traded in for military uniforms. Fine, military occupation is a part of the reality, But it's not what you think. It's empowering and fun and sexy. Do you really think people this fun, young, and free would have it in them to commit war crimes? The public perception of Israel is essential to its survival, but so is something else: that there are enough settlers there to keep up the colonizing. That brings us to the final reason Israel uses sex to sell Zionism. So Jewish Zionists have more kids with other Jewish Zionists. Have you ever heard of Birthright? It's an all-expenses-paid trip to Israel that young Jews across the world are eligible for, as long as they're between 18 and 26.
Thousands of Birthright Israel participants filling the seashore with endless smiles, scholars, accents, and tent bodies.
I didn't really have a connection to the homeland, and I came here, and just everybody's so great, and I'm just like overcome with like connection.
It's like you're high on Zionism.
I am really high right now.
The trip is sold as a journey home for young Jews to connect with Israel on an emotional and adventurous 10-day itinerary where they're accompanied by Israeli soldiers. That's not a coincidence. In the early days of Birthright, the billionaire co-founder Charles Bronfman said, quote, he was bothered that the kids on those early trips weren't bonding with their Israeli peers. His answer was developing the mifgash, the encounter, between Jewish Israeli teens and their diaspora counterparts. These encounters move very fast to what we call hormonal mifgashim. Things happen.
Countless romances from the trips have blossomed into serious relationships and even marriages.
And it looks like these boys and girls like each other a lot. I mean, you might have a lot of Jewish babies coming out of this trip eventually, a lot of marriages, a lot of relationships. Is that part of it?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be eventually, it can be tonight.
It's not a coincidence that intimacy is a part of the trip. Participants spend the whole trip with Israeli soldiers intentionally chosen to be attractive. They're taken out for nights of drinking and dancing, and some even spend a night in a fake Bedouin tent, quote, where participants sleep crowded together, a setup conducive to first kisses.
I remember even on the trip that I attended, there were two Israeli soldiers who clearly were into each other. Like they very much had a vibe. And someone made a joke on the trip that you have to save yourselves for the Americans, basically clarifying that they were there to seduce us.
So why is coupling so encouraged on these trips? Well, the originator of the idea for Birthright said one of his main goals was to, quote, create a situation whereby spouses are available, because at the time, intermarriage between Jews and non-Jews was at a high, which isn't great when you're trying to build an ethnocracy. To maintain a demographic majority over Palestinians, Israel needs Jews to make more Jews. So what better way to encourage reproduction and immigration than through a coming-of-age, euphoric, emotional, and adventurous trip? The reality of Israel's nation-building story is violence, displacement, dispossession, colonization, and settlement. That's not a great brand. In order to get settlers invested in the vision and try to secure the future, sex is a great tool. Beauty and aesthetics and fun are great marketing tactics, and they have tangible outcomes, like more babies. More babies means more people to get conscripted to the occupation forces and maintain the oppressive military infrastructure necessary for Israel to exist. And what better way to convince people to at least look the other way, and at most participate, than by making it sexy?